Hey, all you Arizona lovers. This is the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose.
And I'm your producer, Brittany.
And here at Finding Arizona Podcast, we collect the local stories of all entrepreneurs and from around the valley. So join us at findingarizonapodcast.com, where you can hear every episode and see it as well at
YouTube. Like, subscribe, and comment below who you want to see next on our show. And when you're ready to start your podcast, you found the right spot. Found House, your next podcast production company.
Now, let's get back to the show. Score big with SeatGeek. Whether it's concerts, sports, or live events, SeatGeek has you covered. Use code FindingArizona to get a fantastic $20 discount on your SeatGeek tickets. Catch your favorite live events hassle-free with extra savings. Visit SeatGeek.com and make every experience unforgettable. Welcome back, everybody, to the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose. As always, we bring in fantastic guests every week, and today is no different. I'd love to introduce you to Fernando here, and there's a lot about him that I can't wait to talk about, but more than anything, I'd like to say he's an actor, director, executive producer or producer?
I guess technically, yeah.
Yeah.
Wore a lot of hats.
And he wears a lot of hats, but we're going to be talking a little bit about your one movie that you've brought out already that's called Vega.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll get into the next one that you're going to be coming out called
Big John.
There we go.
Big John.
Yeah, I want to double check because I was like, Little John, I'm thinking Robin Hood. Of like,
oh, yeah.
yeah. But yes, we're going to get into with Fernando here. But I always give it to you to kind of introduce yourself a little bit and give us your origin story and how a lot of this came into your life and that approach to doing your career that you are doing now.
Well, man, my origin story, my lore.
Yeah.
I'll give you the abridged version. So I was born and raised in San Francisco, California. 2017, I left. I joined the Marine Corps with my buddy Wiley, who's also my DP now.
Nice.
And roommate. And I got out in 2021, and in between, I got little bits. In between my service, I got bits and parts as background for, where I'm going at is that myself and a bunch of other members of my platoon had a chance to be in Christopher Nolan's Tenet.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you remember that one. It's the one where it's another time travel one.
Backwards and forwards situation.
So they were filming near our base, and we went to like a random casting call, and they said the director, they're very secretive about it, the director would single-handedly pick every extra.
Okay.
And apparently he liked us because we were like the real deal. Because we were infantry, and the job required for people to be running in full kit and weapons as like stuff's blowing up like backwards as in the film. But long story short, we couldn't attend because we were committed to a whole month in Bridgeport, California. So we couldn't just dip out for 3 weeks of filming. Yeah. But it was kind of cool that they wanted us, and I kind of got this acting bug there. Like I was so
That's
close.
Where you were bitten. You were like
a little bit. I was like, I felt like a door closed, and I was like, you know what? I kind of want to try again. So
yeah.
Once I got out, I had an agency for a bit I lived in Riverside, California, and I had a agency based out of Ontario, California. Mm-hmm. And I would audition for stuff I didn't really feel like I was going to get. Mm-hmm. For example, I auditioned for the villain role for Blue Beetle and NBC's Primo.
Okay. Yeah.
These are all like, because of my last name, Lopez, and I figured they want the Hispanic roles, but it was kind of cool how I didn't think I was going to get those roles because I'm just I'm not like a famous dude. They would prioritize anyone that has like more
credits.
Yeah, more credits, someone that's more recognizable face. Yeah. And I was kind of paying the agency like $5 to edit, which is something I could have done myself.
Yeah.
So after it was just kind of slow, I did 2 feature films, independent projects in one in Berkeley, California, and the other one in Redlands.
Okay.
And there was a point where I was just kind of on survival mode the whole time, and I was purely doing anything security related. I was working at a plaza.
Yeah.
I was working, I did the Oscars once in 2021. And it's just, there was a time I was training to be a bodyguard, but I have lower back pain. And it's just like, I also felt like I didn't want to just feel like once I got out of the military, my only real kind of goal and what I'm good at is to either be a cop or to be someone's like muscle. Yeah. So I eventually made the quest to move to Phoenix because I knew there was a small but very, very good independent acting and film community out here. So I moved out here, and some people think I just woke up one day and decided I just want to get into acting. So when I moved out here, I think it was late 2022, I wanted to put together my first film. Yeah. I wanted to create a part that I felt like I could relate to that fits my stature. And it became Vega. Yeah. And I didn't intend to be like the actor director, but I kind of just, I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to take control of my own destiny. Yeah. Do it on my terms without doing the whole rat race where, people have a lottery ticket mindset where they got to be liked by a certain producer and casting director. But nowadays, everyone has like a camera or an iPhone that produces cinematic quality. So I'm like, we could totally do some fun stuff. Just
absolutely.
And that's, now I've done Big John, and I don't think that's going to be the last of my director actor parts. But that's essentially the abridged version of my origin story.
Well, you brought up a lot of things, and that's something that we'll kind of like, it's the best part of getting the abridged version because we can dive in, and it helps me kind of pick at some of the cool and the little things that intrigue me. Mm-hmm. One of them is just the fact that your full start, or I guess the bitten part of your passion is that kind of high artistic film like Tenet, where it was like, I think that's probably his third or fourth big feature film or something like that.
Possibly.
Where it was just like something where he had high budget, high goals for, and, he was looking into that. And I think that says a lot about, when you hear someone or find out about what you're going to be a part of, that it just kind of, you get like a storm, you get pulled into it, and you kind of find yourself rolling around with all of the ideas and passion for it. And when someone has that kind of passion and has that kind of, weight behind them with the studio, it really does intrigue you somewhat of like, oh, what is it about this thing that I can put myself in that shoes or find? And for you, was there any point where you're just like, oh, I want to learn more about filmmaking when you heard about that being Tenet, or it being something of like weight with the studio?
Well, originally I thought I could just, jump into acting. I thought, I was told for a while, like, oh, you're buff, you have a military background, and like, oh, you'd be great for like action films. Okay. But actually, before the Tenet casting, I was in a Hallmark movie called Sister of the Bride. It was also filmed near my base. I had nothing. It was like 2019. I had a weekend off, and I was there playing like a college student. Okay. I was, I had the bright plaid colors that had happy colors there. And it was a scene of like, it was produced by Ryan Rotman, and he was a cool guy. I still follow him to this day, and he knows what I've been up to since then. It was a filming a proposal scene. Hallmark, it's usually about weddings or Christmas
or love.
So this was one of those things where someone's, the girl's getting proposed, and we're all up on the balcony like, hey, I'm so happy. And then we did like 20 more takes of that for different angles. Actually, it was a pretty quick filming, but the same people that got me the Hallmark movie role. And then there was another classroom scene I did. I don't know if that's ever going to come out, but then that's where they offered the secret Warner Brothers project. I didn't know it was Christopher Nolan. I kind of did some detective work because they were saying that, oh, the cast is flying from Italy. And I looked, and I was like, And then I looked.
What film in Italy with the cat? Like you connect the dots, sort of thing.
Well, and then it's like I looked at because there was like a company that does the casting, and then they're background show like Interstellar and Dunkirk, and those are
okay.
And I was like, okay. So then I looked on IMDb, so I'm like, there has to be this movie called Tenet, and it was, and it was just like my squad leader, who he also went to, and he was just like, they wanted him to be an advisor of some type too, but he's super disabled now, so he had to do some doctor's appointments first, and then he said he's down to do it, but then they were just like, oh, thanks anyway. Well, and it was just hang up, and it happened to all of us. I'm like, damn, that was. I learned later that it was actually. Well, and to answer your question, I was mostly just trying to get into acting.
It was trying to propel yourself.
So it wasn't actually Tenet. It was a movie I did directed by Edward Green called Pick a Side, which I played like underground. There was an underground fight ring in this particular movie, and I was playing a guy the main character had to fight. Okay. And he was someone that introduced me to, like, you know, he raised $50,000 of his own money. Nice. All of his equipment is his. He just got like freelancers to, you know, press record, and he didn't owe anybody anything. And he got his movie on, you know, Amazon and Tubi, similar to like what I did. So he's the one that got me the whole, like, the process, like, dude, just make your own movies.
Yeah. That was, I mean, again, it's like helpful when you see firsthand someone saying to you, like, they're giving you the instruction book, so to speak, and you're just like, oh yeah, I can definitely follow the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps.
It's been kind of mystified because there's people that have this dated idea that you got to be in the right place, the right time. And I don't know, you got to pay your dues. That's like some background actor for like commercials or really, you know, brown nose casting, especially out here.
Yeah. So, okay. Now that you bring that up, you had mentioned the fact that you chose Phoenix for the fact of this culture of indie productions and a filmmaking realm. What I've heard is that it's kind of up and coming now that, you know, California has become a little bit more expensive to do some things, and Phoenix is projected to be that next big realm for filmmaking. One, in part, they're putting a lot of money into a new studio, like a giant.
So I heard in Buckeye, I think.
Yeah. So again, give me some information and context from that moment of like, I'm going to go to Phoenix because of said reason. And where'd you find that information out? Like, why was it important to come to Phoenix from your perspective?
I'm trying to think, who did I talk to? It was just a lot of like looking up certain people that, you know, backstage.com, IMDb, like, oh, this guy is making a apocalyptic movie in downtown Phoenix, and I donated to his film.
I remember that, actually.
You do?
Yeah, I think I remember.
I had a bit part in it, and it was cool. And then I went to one of those networking events, and you find out there's a lot of, like, everyone kind of knows each other here. Yeah. So one of the things I liked about Phoenix, first of all, is I could afford to live out here.
That's always a plus.
And I always meet people that whenever I tell people I make film, they think, oh, well, why aren't you in LA? I hear that's better. Well, no one makes movies in California anymore. They go to either Atlanta or like in a foreign country or Vancouver to disguise it as New York.
Yeah.
But I feel like, one, it's really hot here, so they don't think about like coming here. Like, they do film every so often, but the way I see it is that they bring their own people from California, like all the Hollywood type people. But in regards to that studio, I believe it's just kind of like a space that you can like, you can rent out. It's kind of like, they're making another Jurassic World movie, and they have like a studio in Malta, but it's like a giant tank for like underwater scenes. So like that studio there is probably just like, you know, it's like they have those changing backgrounds like they use in Mandalorian, that it's not a green screen, but it's an interact.
It's a glow.
It might be that, but don't quote me on that. But that's probably what they mean when they said they got the new tax credit. Okay. Because there was a while in the early 2000s, for what I've heard, that this was kind of like the spot for indie filmmaking in Phoenix. There was a pretty big community there. And I also think that out here, more people are kind of attracted to the idea of like, oh, yeah, you could film in my restaurant. or something. And it's not like they don't try to put a lot of like hoops.
Yeah.
Like if you try to do it in California, because they think like, oh, everyone's trying to film something. Well, it's going to cost you and all these waivers. And for like, for Vega, I filmed up in New River for Roadrunner, and I paid like $500 to use it for the whole day.
Oh, that's good. That's
cool. I try to pride myself as someone that works pretty efficiently and not trying to like, rebuild the whole set and move stuff around. I'm just there for the space. We get in, we get out, and that's so I think Phoenix, Arizona in general, there's a lot of diverse spots that I feel like a lot of people don't take advantage of, like the natural beauty, and just there's like talent in your backyard. You don't have to necessarily go find the A-lister amongst the peers here, and I say that in quotations because everyone thinks they're like a movie star out here.
Well, it's like, so you even look back at some of the history of Arizona being in Westerns. Monument Valley has a deep cultural history when it comes to having Westerns, and even New Mexico partially too.
New Mexico is another good spot.
And it's just like, you forget that even back then when we all thought their studios were in LA, there were movies being made in Arizona, in New Mexico, in these different locations that are monumental. They're like really cool. They're like very locales. Like
if you go to Arizona, was it the Mesa History Museum? They got a whole room full of like all the big movies that filmed there. Like they even had Temple of Doom. Oh, really? Like filmed here, and
that's really cool. Like I didn't
think they like they had like Rambo. They had the Wyatt Earp and Tombstone, obviously. Yeah. But then they had all these like little portions of the film, like, oh, that was in Arizona. Like the wall that apparently that waterfall, I think, was in Arizona, which I was like shocked. But yeah, there's a rich history of film here, and not a lot of people know about that. Yeah. I think a lot of my peer group, they want to get on the red carpet and like be discovered. Yeah. And I think that history is cool. I like when it's like in the backyard. You don't need to go somewhere where there's like high traffic and cost of living is ridiculous. And,
So I think it's really great that you've brought to light that there's opportunity out here. And there's definitely an ability to create what you want, whether it's filmmaking or something more entrepreneurial based, where it's like, I started this back in 2015 and podcasts weren't even a thing. Like really, it was just kind of a few handful of guys doing it, and really just like it started to build and build and build. Now, when I'm doing it, I'm so enamored with some of not only the history, but the newer voices being let out and letting their stories be heard. I think it's important because everyone has that something special. And especially when it comes to storytelling, I think it's really cool that we have an opportunity to have many voices rather than just a handful of them. I think from your particular background too, it's like you have an opportunity to share one side of you, which is maybe the one side that you think everyone kind of puts you in that box, which is that military strongman kind of ideal. But there's so much more to you. And I think that comes out in parts of Vega that I think people should have the opportunity to hear and see and watch for themselves to kind of really take a look at your abilities from a very wide spectrum. So I'd love to ask you too, it's like some of the choices that you made, not only as an actor director, like what to you were some of your favorite parts of, having those two hats on, whereas like acting and directing?
Well, I appreciate all the confidence you said. It makes me feel good right there. Well, I guess when I first made the first draft of Vega, it was a lot darker of a film. It was more of, because when I lived in Riverside, I worked at some like more nightclubs, not really country scenes, but more like kind of like the loud music, the drugs, and the constant fights. And then I kind of retooled it to make it more like another establishment I worked at in Temecula, where it's more Western country vibe. I figured that was more appealing, especially in Arizona. And then it kind of evolved into a comedy. I think, I mean, I have my influences, like film wise, but it didn't really intentionally come out until like, okay, what do we got here? And, you know, we see this view, the sunset, and just that. I'm like, oh, that's like Howard Hawks or John Ford right there. It's like, oh, just like that. Cool. I like a lot of wide shots. I like a lot of indie films. They film like close up with like faces. I like to give it a bigger feeling, especially with like the Roadrunner.
Your conclusion shot is basically that is what you really like, which I assume is atop of Tempe.
Yeah, Tempe Mountain. Yeah, that's I chose that on purpose. It's like it's all in around, you know, within driving distance, and I was like, it has this like.
Oh, trust me, I was like looking, and I was like, oh, I know this spot, and I had never come across the Roadrunner. But you said
it's a bit of a mission to get there, but they have some pretty good brisket up there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they're very nice there. One time I came by just to say hello, and they're like, yeah, you should come when there's a band playing. And they were very like casual about it. Like me and Wiley, we just went with like our phone, and we walked around when it was look, because every time we filmed, it was always during closing, but I want to show it open. So they just.
Was that one shot with the actual band guy?
Oh yeah, it was an actual band, and that was an actual crowd. I just walked around, and then you know, Wiley was secretly like filming me. Look, I was on like patroller watching it. Yeah, but I was just, you know, they're open, and you know, cool. I went when it was hot. It was summer, and I had like the jacket, and it was like I'm so sweaty. But for continuity purposes, I had to do it. It's okay. I last. I you know. I'm alive. But you know, when I direct, I try to write and, you know, shoot like based on my strengths. As like also like an actor, I'm not a thespian. I'm very physical type. So I just kind of write. And I have like this awkward, dry humor about me that I embrace. I used to get mad at it when I try to be like serious, but I think a lot of people like it. I don't intend to be funny. It's just...
comes off.
And
you write to your advantages, like your benefit. Like,
and it comes off natural instead of like when you write something and it's like guy talks, the other guy talks, and it goes like A, B, A, B. But that's like, I like the overlapping, the arguing, and it's like the little subtle movements I do. I don't think that hard, but I just do whatever, and then people like it.
So Wiley, was he with you when you started drafting into the more comedy country stuff?
No, actually, when I drafted, that guy lived in Riverside. Okay. He lived in Arizona before I did.
Oh, cool.
So he was out in Mesa somewhere, and I moved the following year of 2022, and then I was living in a different apartment. Well, we live in a new space now, but we kind of lived in student housing, and they would have thrown in some random person right next to me. Okay. So I found him, and I was like, hey, you want to just move in? And then kind of accidentally, it's like, you want to help me film this portion? Because I had different directors of photography and assistant directors, and then we just kind of finished the rest of the film just like together. I'm like, this is as good as it gets. And, you know, we don't need to complicate things. So, and then it kind of became like, we were like the duo. And that's how we did our next film.
That's really good.
But we've known each other for years. We were in different platoons, but we kind of reconnected later, and we got closer like towards the end of our I guess our service. And then I lived in Riverside, he was out in Arizona, and then we just linked up, and now he's involved in the filming process and meeting all these like actors. And it's kind of cool how like now we're like, damn, we got this done. We could do more of this. Let's look at other cameras. So it was, it's very exciting. Not a lot of people get that opportunity, but
absolutely. That's something that, again, I really do appreciate, that kind of do it yourself, grassroots kind of wanting to push because of the passion of what you do. So definitely something that I relate to myself. Again, it's like starting this in grad school, never thought it would really take over my life. And it's snowballed into like doing one cool event, then doing another cool event, meeting this other guy and networking with these other people, and just like And then my wife came along because I was working at a co-working office, and we met. I was like super embarrassed to like show her any of my stuff at the beginning of our relationship, and was like, oh, I got this thing. I can't really go out on weekends. And she's like, what is it? I'm like, so I have a podcast. And she's like, what is the name of the podcast? I love podcasts. And so
That's cool.
So she binged all of it, and she wanted to help. And one of our first dates was like her helping me do photography and shooting for that.
That's cool.
And then we
I
had
like
ice
that.
cream afterwards.
I like those. It's cool to have a little bonding of creative outlets, because me and Wiley are vets, and we've done all the hard manly stuff. So it's nice to use this part and be like, what would make a good shot? We got to turn the lighting a little bit and use the creative sides, and then it's kind of fun, actually, especially if we're also kind of cavemen, so it's hard to calibrate really big clunky cameras. So these DJI Osmos are really beneficial for us. I'm like, oh, this already makes it 24 frames per second. This is cool. And I don't have to I have one of those cameras too with the lenses that you have to adjust, but I like to find efficient ways, and it's cool that you two met in that mutual thing, instead of like the typical, oh, we're gonna get coffee here.
Yeah. Well, she's from San Diego, so that's the other thing about it, is that I think for her coming out to a place like Arizona, and she had a business, and she was just really, when I met her, I was like, I'm super kind of intimidated. I don't know. I was just starting out with my first big boy job. Yeah. And I was just like, I'm meeting this girl who's got a business. I'm just starting out. I don't know anything. So I'm like really embarrassed to like tell her my life of like, I'm living with my parents, but I'm trying to figure out my shit. And it's like, it's really kind of weird, but
at least you're honest about it.
Yeah. And so now, being where we're at today, it's just like she's the yin to my yang, because I'm the creative kind of like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do all of this. And she's the businessy end of it. And she keeps us grounded in the sense of like, we can do that, but we have to take steps to like make sure we're covering, the right things, and we're doing it the right way so that we can succeed and make this successful. And
which is smart.
Yeah. You kind of need that. You kind of need that person to kind of bring you back a little bit and make sure that, you want to do the high creative stuff, but you don't want to overwhelm the audience or overwhelm yourself.
And it's good that you have, there's like, it kind of when a lot of filmmakers out here get really ambitious, they want to do all this stuff that's out of like a budget or realism.
Yeah.
So like, not a lot of people ask me for like advice, but if I were to tell people, like for the first film, I wouldn't try to write something out of like your wheelhouse of knowledge.
Yeah.
Like I write what I know and I have access to. If like probably not try to make something about aliens and robots.
Yeah, because that's budget for
because then if you do it
and all of that.
Yeah, and then it's like it's going to come off, unless you're trying to do something really campy. Yeah. But it's like you could make a story out of like anything that's like low key. I mean, I like, a lot of people have given me credit for like making my movies very like low key and realistic of like everyday people. I don't have like superpowers. I'm not like, anything like that.
Do you know this story? I heard this story from an interview with Matt Damon, him and Ben Affleck when they did the what's the movie?
Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting, where they're like, we threw all of our ideas together when writing, and then we kind of really perfected the script. But one of the first things that they thought of is like, we really need a nice monologue for one of the characters so that we can get a big name in. And so like that was like, we just wrote what we were good at, which is like that Boston area, like where we grew up. And it's like, that's what we were doing, things that would benefit us and not have to worry about, stunts and stuff like that. We just wrote to our advantage. And one of the big things that we liked was like, if we wanted to have a bigger name, because they were still kind of starting out, we needed to have a monologue so that that bigger name can really sink their teeth into that scene. And so like that's where Robin Williams scene with Matt Damon and like it's not your fault. That's where that came from. Came out of. So
no, it's definitely smart, especially at that time. I think the equivalent nowadays is if someone gets like an influencer into like our level, someone with like lots of followers, they like, you know, sometimes you can negotiate, hey, if you're for one day in this film, you get to do this and that, and you can kind of work something out. So like, you know, obviously at that time they used Robin Williams because he was like a big A-list star, but like I've heard of people that like they get like, I don't know, someone that's famous and that adds more of like their audience to expose your film.
The exposure of it.
One of the other influences that we had was, you know, when people think of action, they think a lot of guns and explosions, and that's going to be kind of tricky to do, run and gun, kind of like what we do. So we became fans of an actor based in Korea called Ma Dong-so, also known as Don Lee. He played Gilgamesh in Marvel's Eternals, but he's like a big action star in Korea, and they don't have guns. And he has this franchise of action films called The Roundup, where most of the action scenes are him punching people, and also comedy. And I'm like, and it works so well. We saw Roundup Punishment in theaters recently, and it was like one of the best times. And we're like, why are we not making stuff? We could totally do this. It would be easy for us. So that's kind of like an influence of like, wait, that could be like our specialty. You don't necessarily need to have like, because in real life, not everyone's going to have like AK-47s right underneath the couch and spray and pray. And so I kind of like the intimate idea of just like, you know, just the big protagonist, and it's like there's funny scenarios, and sometimes you just have to
your final fight scene. What you guys like,
and then it evolved into our next film where that became more of like prominent of like, all right, we do this really well, let's emphasize that.
Nice.
So that became more of our strength. So we're not like, oh, we got to get gun props, we got to get muzzle flashes and all this stuff, and then it's kind of iffy to do, especially because you're gonna get people that they're like screw around with the fake firearm, and you know, especially in our little indie super duper low budget level, I think it works well, and it's more fun to choreograph fight scenes. But
I love that you guys again are looking towards what you guys are good at, like beneficial to you, and really something that you are passionate about because you love the film style, and B, it's like something that you have the reins to like, we can work around what we have here, which is using our hands and using more physical scenes like that. So I'd love to, again, like kind of pushing that idea of like, now you've had one movie made under, you know, put into your list of things that credits that you do. Now moving on to this next movie, Big John.
Yeah, Big John.
What was the start of like, can you give us a little bit of like your journey of like start to now where you guys are at now?
So Big John was always meant to be a simplistic story. I wanted, because when I did Vega, I had a couple guys who, you know, I don't like committee meetings, especially since I like to think I trust my own intuition, but I didn't like to get permission from like assistant directors and DPs. Everyone's trying to be like the director. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. So there's some things and certain, for my particular creative outlook, that I wanted to do Vega differently, but there were some sacrifices that had to be made just because we filmed with a certain actor, and upon retrospect, we didn't really need this scene or whatnot. So it was just like, I for what it is, and for my first film, I'm proud of Vega, but there was something in me that's like, I want to see if I could direct again, but on like my terms, and not make it like 20 minutes to talk about a shot before we shoot. And we're on like a time limit, and it takes forever to unplug every gear or whatnot. So I came up with a simple story of, you know, a guy who's a drifter. He comes back home after he finds out his dad died, and Big John's it's like a relationship buddy story disguised as an action film, because it's about a guy who comes home and his younger sister is dating his arch nemesis from the Marine Corps. And it gets awkward. And then in the background, there's a corrupt property developer who already took their ranch, and now he's trying to take their home, and like they're throwing like low level like assassins or like thugs to try to like beat me up, but it doesn't work because, you know, I'm Big John. Yeah. And it's, you know, there's a lot of fight scenes there. The movie is very funny because it's such a low scale that like all that's brushed off, but my focus is like, why are you dating him?
Your main
I hate him.
Is the arch nemesis love story.
And then eventually they will, you know, the two characters have a fight, like two gorillas fighting for a banana in the woods, and it's great. And then eventually they'll have to team up to
fight off.
It's all very low level, and then it's like it's all like it doesn't take itself seriously, and there's a lot of more of the dry humor, the kind of like awkward pauses. Yeah. I'm really proud of Big John. I'm excited for you guys to see it, because it's like I felt like for Vega I had to over explain things because I had people that didn't understand like Westerns or like what I was going for. So I'm like, you know what? I found a good niche. I know what works for me, and I know how to do certain things, but I don't like having like, are you sure you want to film that? Are you sure you want to do it like that? And I was like, yes, dude. How would you do it? And they explained the exact same thing, but more the film school verbiage. I'm like, okay, we're saying the same thing, so stop slowing me down. Yeah. And I was like, don't you have someplace to be? He said you could be here part-time. So so it was a lot of it. It was a little more chaotic since it was my first film, and people were like, they didn't understand what my goal was, putting it on like streaming and like, you know, and just building an audience. Yeah. It wasn't meant to be like this epic modus operandi of a film that everything has to be perfect. I'm like, it's hard enough trying to collaborate with so many people and get them all to
perform at the highest level.
We'll also show up. Yeah. Everybody wants to be a movie star, but no one wants to answer my phone. Everybody wants to act. And then it's like, hey, it's Saturday.
We're going.
Oh, sorry, man. I didn't tell you. And it's like, well, we got this guy and he's going out of town tomorrow. I'm like, we'll film around you guys and pretend like I'm walking around the corner and they're in the same place, same space, but we film it another night or something. So that's a little difficult because, you know, everyone wants to, like, oh, I want to be in your film. Like, well, you got to answer your phone. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's professionalism.
So there's a lot of that, and it's hard for me to do an ensemble. So Big John was like my reset button. Feel like, you know what, I want another shot, because I didn't feel like this was like the best I could do. Yeah. And I'm very proud of like what I got going.
And so like that, I always find that intriguing when, again, it's like you're the director, you have the vision, you're kind of the circus ringleader, and then like on top of that you have to participate as one of the trapeze artists, and like you're the actor as well.
The one I can keep accountable is myself.
Exactly.
And, you know, and Wiley and I live together, so it's like sometimes we look, it's like, hey, golden hour's here, you want to just film a quick shot of me looking off pensively, just like reflecting. I'm like, all right, that took 10 seconds. Cool.
Yeah. And then on top of that, too, it's like those shots where you're inside your own, I assume your own apartment.
Yeah.
Which is like
my own place.
Yeah. So it's like, it's pretty.
It works as
easy
it is.
Enough to like, you can even take a little bit longer. It's like, oh, let's get the lighting to move this lamp here and what.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so I really do appreciate that, because you're putting all of your basket in this, like, I'm going to do as much as I can on my end and make sure that everything is kind of the right thing with, you know, these shots of myself and these shots where I'm a part of the actual like filming into it. So it's
like the small business mindset. It's like the term is filmtrepreneur.
Nice. I like
There's a book by Alex Ferrari called The Rise of the Filmtrepreneur. That was like my map of like my journey. And if anyone's trying to do like what I'm doing, they should read that book.
I'm so glad that you brought up books, because in Vega, there's the book of the hero's journey that I was like, that's so on the nose of like what this movie is, on top of you actually learning from the book.
I knew it was going to be on the nose because, you're a creative too, but some people you gotta like force feed.
Yeah, so I think that was the only time it was like a little bit force fed, where you like actually explain what the book was, and like it's my journey too. It's like
there's so many people have small attention spans, and it's like they're like, why are they fighting? Why is this? Why is this up to the bar? How come you tip your hat? How come? And it's like that. Because that's what cowboys do, and it's a country bar. And like, why? What are they doing with the cows back there? Are they gonna kill them and eat them? Like, no, they're bull riding.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And I'm like amazed at like the ignorance around.
Yeah, and sometimes like that force fed is just needed. Like,
Oh yeah, I had someone like involved, and he was trying to rewrite certain things in my movie and wants to add some cliche elements of like, we need to have a young protege. Try to make it like True Grit, because he doesn't know Westerns. And it's like, and then like the opening, it was going to be so different with like bank robbers running through the desert and a standoff, and they have guns, but not me. And I'm supposed to be like, go ahead, try your shot. And it was this whole production that didn't make any sense with the story. So at the time I was like, shoot, I gotta like, I guess dumb things down, because I don't know. I think more people appreciate the subtle stuff I was doing. I had to throw that in, because then they're like, when is the explosions? When are the movies? And it's like, is that all you guys think about?
Yeah, there's a level of
exploitation.
Like, there's just I wish there was more people who are like you, who just really want to make something creative and fun, and have this level of like, I know what I can afford. Like, I know what my budget.
I'm not making Schindler's List, nor am I making Transformers. But it's still a good time.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's why we lean towards like the action, the comedy that could be done like in our backyard. Because then I feel like personally, if you make it funny, more people will tune in, and they'll not be trying to think, oh, is this indie, or is this like studio, or trying to look for the flaws. But if they're having a good time with like the jokes and like the subtle humor and the messages, I think that's how you build like, oh, this guy has some stories to tell.
Yeah.
I think a lot of indie filmmakers out here, they focus on spending all this money on a 30-minute short that's never going to be seen, but every shot has to look like a blockbuster movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, if I had $30,000, I would be making 2 Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nuts. It's like, but they're like, we got to get the ambulance. We got to get an actual police car and all these, the exact light and the Komodo red camera. I'm like, I use Panasonic Lumix. It's this big and it's great. I don't understand. It's like so many filmmakers, and then they get bitter. They're like, oh, he can't do that. That's unorthodox.
I think it's the best thing in the world.
It's cool though. Yeah. I like that we're different, and me and Wiley like, dude, this is like it.
Yeah.
No one else is doing this. We will not tell them about this, because then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I always liked your work. If you ever need actors, like you were a pain in the ass to get a hold of, and now all of a sudden you came out of the rock where you were hiding when I needed you, and you're like, can you write me a recommendation letter for the agency that I also try? I'm like, because you directed the film I was in. I'm like, you mean my movie? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, it'd be like that. And I'm just like, I'm not like bitter about it. I noticed that happens a lot, and so many people gave me grief about. You see the game, and you see what people are trying to do, and you know that to be a good person, to be like do the right thing, like and it doesn't have to be like pulling hairs to get certain shots or like the certain lighting, and we gotta be here till like 2 or 4 in the morning. And it's like we all got stuff to do. Yeah, like this is good. The lighting's good and the sound is good. That's all that matters. Yeah, and then the work ethic is what I like to pride myself more, because I'm not someone like, hey, I'm not a rich guy, but for 1 hour we could shoot like 3 scenes. They're funny. Yeah, you're gonna have a good time. I'll throw you some gas money. There you go. If I'm like broke for some reason, and then it's like cool. And then most of the time they're like, you don't have to pay me. I had a good time. Yeah. Because when I say I'm doing a movie, it's as good as done. I don't want to sound cocky, but I'm like, I'm committed. And
I need to finish something.
Well, yeah, because I've been in like so many indie films that it took like 2 years to be made when it didn't need to, because they're trying to make like an epic thing and then it's never released, ever.
Yeah.
Because they get caught up in the whole distribution trap.
Yeah.
And, that's a whole nother subject, but I feel pretty confident in what we're doing. And
well, I really do appreciate you giving us a little bit of like that understanding and of your time and stuff like that. I'm excited about some of the new stuff that you like just not even the film itself, but like getting to play with new cameras, getting to play with new actors and characters. I'm so encouraged that you're going to keep watching film and you're going to get some new ideas on how you go about stuff.
It's already been happening. So
perfect.
Very excited.
I typically like to lean towards the end of our conversation towards looking towards the future. I know you said you were 90% done with the film.
Big John's done.
Big John's.
I'm just waiting on a poster.
Okay.
And then I'll start with like the distribution, have a little watch party somewhere.
Nice.
This isn't going to break my bank, but I think everyone really is excited to see this, because no one's really making action comedies out here. And I'm like, wow. But yeah, no, the film's done. I could send you like a link and you guys can watch it. But
now it's like goals for it now after you've done the distribution and had the watch party. Is there anything that you're like still like, is there something that journal about that you wish you were gonna like could do or wanted? Well,
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try my best to like push Big John out. I have a guy in my film, hi Garrett. I told him I was going to do it. He's a model out here and he's getting into acting. He's my co-lead. Okay. He's got a pretty big following. So I hope, and there was a lot of hype for the trailer. So I hope all those good people check out Big John. It's a good time.
Okay.
I'm also putting subtitles in Espanol and Portuguese and Japanese and Korean, because I feel like those markets might also enjoy that more than domestically. It's just thinking outside the box.
There you go.
I am possibly developing a reboot of Vega now that we have fancier cameras and Wiley and I are stronger filmmakers. I'm like, we could
continue the journey.
Yeah. I love that. It's like, we can make a few of these and this could be fun.
Yeah.
We've already thought of cool ideas that it wouldn't be like tasking to the mental health or like, it doesn't have to be this whole, like, it doesn't have to be hard to like move different pieces. And, I think I have a pretty good relationship with Roadrunner. I just have to show up and be like, hi guys, it's me.
If it's not a continuation, like, the saga like journey where it's like either he's going back to the bar for some reason, or
like a soft reboot I was thinking of where you don't necessarily have to watch Vega, but it's almost kind of like you could start from there, but there's still hints that everything that happened in the last film happened. And then there, certain people will come back, there'll be new people.
Sweet.
And it's just kind of like, I think it's like an Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, if I could put my hand up for bringing back Rico, because that was one of I was talking to you about that scene. I think he was good. He's like naturalistic of like everyone knows that kind of guy. Like everyone has that kind of friend.
There's always one like that. No, I just a lot of that was improv, and it just just talk to me like just remember my name is Vega.
Yeah,
and then it's no different than like how we would like shoot the shits, but we had very natural chemistry and it was a good time. My favorite scene was definitely the bathroom. Yeah, that was something I almost didn't have that because I was like broke and I was like, damn, I can't get a hold of the manager to like film there. So we found another spot and that became like one of the because it happened in real life kind of.
It's a funny bit. Like the whole scene is a funny, like pretty funny bit.
I think it's classic. Yeah, because it was loosely based on something that happened. 3 a.m. some kid was passed out in the toilet and it was like this awkward thing and we were all like it was 3 a.m. we're all hanging out and drinking afterwards. Then our head of security was all pissed because there's some kid from Camp Pendleton who was still sitting in the toilet all knocked out, and we grabbed him and then they just kicked him out into the night wherever he came from. But I was like, that would be funny.
Yeah.
So
it plays out really well in the scene. And so again, I'm like I'm very excited for what you have going on and what you're accomplishing. Wish you nothing but the best of luck with Big John.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
And thanks for having me.
And before you go, let everyone know where they can find you, whether it's social media wise or, your website or something in between. Just let everyone know where they can find you online.
I probably should make a website, but
it's totally social media.
I don't know. Instagram, Big Fern is my name. That's where I'm most active on. My IMDb has my email. If you want to contact me, I got a very small YouTube channel, Big Fern TV. That's just another place where I put my trailers and whatnot. But I think my Instagram's the one you could, contact me the most, and that's where all my good stuff's there.
I appreciate you coming in. Give me a handshake.
Yes, anytime.
Absolutely. And before we go, we do have an outro for us. You can hear every episode of our podcast at findingarizonapodcast.com. And all of our social media handles are under Finding Arizona Podcast. And we end every episode with a kisses, hugs, and belly rubs to our four-legged friends. And we will see you all next time. See ya.